There's a sutta today that I hope will probably cut quite sharply through some of that delusion and some of that, put our suffering in perspective in a sense. Because as I said at the beginning, semi-joking but not really, that welcome to the realm of suffering. This is the realm that we're in. You know, we could even say the Deva realms are still the realm of suffering. Any existence is actually the realm of suffering, although in different degrees. But the human realm is a real mix. And one minute we can feel that everything's going well, we feel some ground under us, we feel that, you know, we've got it together, now we've got the right attitude, now we've got the right friends, we've got the ideal aspirants, or we've got, I don't know, the beautiful monastery on Boar's Hill, and then it gets threatened. And it's only for a moment that things seem to be settled, things seem to be stable, and then things change again. So where do we find our refuge? This is the important thing. Where do we find that? It cannot be found in the things outside. It can only be found through the practice, through living a virtuous life, and through having a degree of faith. The greater the degree, the better, in the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. So this is where we can begin to find some refuge, never in things of the world. So I have chosen today a sutta that Samaneri Upachala suggested, actually, among others. And this one seemed to hit home. And it's called The Simile of the Mountain. And this was a sutta that the Buddha spoke and taught to the King Pasenadi. Now, kings, do they have suffering? Kings have a lot of suffering, probably because they're so rich and so powerful, and yet, guess what? Still, they're not free from old age, sickness, and death. So I think that if you have everything in your life that the society, that the world tries to condition you into thinking will make you happy, and then still you're not happy, the despair can be even greater. And although I'm not a king or a queen or a princess or anything like that, I had a fairly comfortable upbringing, and that made things worse when in my teens things started to fall apart in terms of why I was here. I couldn't understand it. I thought, well, if there's this much struggle, if there's this much cruelty in the world, what's the point? You know, is it really worth going through all that? And for what? And that sounds a little bit depressing, perhaps. I really don't want to depress anyone here. But that for me was the start of the search for a spiritual path. Because I knew that the only way to make sense of it really was to find a compassionate response, to find meaning in the experience of being a human being. And in a sense, there was this intuition that this can be transformed, this suffering can be transformed into deep compassion, and then also into understanding that suffering and finding a way through and out, eventually out of suffering. And of course, that's why we're gathered here together today, hopefully to give one another some support in that process, in that journey, because we can't really do it alone. And anyway, lest this becomes a Dhamma talk, I will begin quite soon. But I just wanted to talk about King Pasenadi a little bit before we start. So the sutta is... Oh my goodness, you found it. Someone's found it without even asking me which sutta it was. Correct, Yerka. It is exactly that sutta. I have the translation here by Bhikkhu Bodhi, which is in the Samyutta Nikaya, and it is indeed from the chapter 3, which is the Kosala Samyutta, and it's called The Simile of the Mountain. And I will just read the very first paragraph before I tell you a little bit about the king. So here it starts, at Savatthi. This is modern-day Shravasti in kind of northern central India, or slightly east. Then, in the middle of the day, King Pasenadi of Kosala approached the Blessed One, that's the Buddha. The Blessed One said to him as he was sitting to one side, "Now where are you coming from, great king, in the middle of the day?" So this is what sometimes we talk about as the courteous and amiable talk that the Buddha begins with. So it's very ordinary conversation to put a person at ease. And as I said, I wanted to mention a little bit about King Pasenadi because it also brings into the story one of the great Buddhist women, lay women of the day, called Queen Mallikā. And Queen Mallikā was one of his wives. She was the chief wife. And it was an interesting marriage, because she was actually not at all from the same kind of social status, but she was a humble, poor girl selling flower garlands in the city. And the King Pasenadi saw her one day after she had offered food into the bowl of the Buddha. And because of that great offering that this young woman made to the Buddha, no less, she was radiant and full of joy, and the king became besotted. And of course, as is the case to some degree today, he had all the power and he could make her his wife. But they did have quite an authentic and loving relationship. And she became his advisor. She was a very wise and clever and wonderful person with a lot of faith in the Buddha. So it was her who brought her husband closer to the Buddha, and yet a lot of the teachings the Buddha gave didn't really work. And this particular teaching was an attempt to kind of drill home the reality of sickness and death to the king, who was still enjoying his sensual pleasures. And I read online just now before coming another little sutta, and this is a translation from a website, so it's maybe not the best, but it's from the Anguttara 5's number 49. And this is what happened when Mallikā died. So we're talking about death today in the context of trying to awaken the king to the reality of his own mortality. But King Pasenadi was also very shaken and inconsolable when his chief queen died. And this is what the Buddha said to him: to try to bring home the inevitability of death and the fact of everything that comes into existence being impermanent. So, but it apparently didn't help the king very much at that time. So the Buddha tried to console him on the death of his wife thus: all beings are mortal, they end with death. They have death as their prospect. All vessels wrought by the potter, whether they're baked or unbaked, are breakable. They end broken. They have breakage as their prospect. Misfortunes do not shake the wise, those who know well how to seek the good. Do not grieve, nor should you lament. Here, what good is gained? None at all. By sorrowing, by lamenting, is any aim accomplished? Not even a bit. What good is gained? None at all. If you know this, then on grieving you should bear it all and think, how to use my strength for present work. So this is already pointing to the importance of falling back on our virtue as our refuge and pouring our energies, our strength into doing good. And it reminded me of actually one of Diana and mine friends, Bruno, a very good Dhamma brother from Montreal. And his father was a famous psychiatrist, one of the most renowned psychiatrists, I think, of his day. He passed away a few years ago. And he used to say to his clients that the most common advice he would give was exercise and serving others, doing some service, doing something good for someone else. It wasn't just the medicines to, change the brain chemistry or whatever, although that may have a role, but it was pouring oneself into something good, something uplifting, something that helps alleviate one's own suffering, but others too. So apparently this didn't help King Pasenadi. It was only after 7 days, when the Buddha told King Pasenadi that his wife was now in a heaven realm, that he was somewhat consoled. So this was all part of his search. So coming on to today's sutta, with that context about the king, the Buddha spoke to him thus. So first of all, he asked him, now where are you coming from, great king, in the middle of the day? And then King Pasenadi replies, just now, Venerable Sir, I've been engaged in those affairs of kingship typical for a head-anointed Khattiya king. For head-anointed Khattiya kings, that's quite a high caste, who are intoxicated with the intoxication of sovereignty, who are obsessed by greed for sensual pleasures, who have attained stable control in their country, and who rule, having conquered a great sphere of territory on earth. So you can see his pride here and his delusion of stability, but also in a sense he knows he's intoxicated, right? He knows he's obsessed with greed. And perhaps in that way the Buddha thought that he was open enough to receive this teaching. So the Buddha comes in. What do you think, great king? Here, a person would come to you from the east, one who is trustworthy and reliable. Having approached, he would tell you, for sure, great king, you should know this. I'm coming from the east, and there I saw a great mountain, high as the clouds, coming this way, crushing all living beings. Do whatever you think should be done, great king. Then a second man would come from the west, or a third person would come from the north, and a fourth person would come to you from the south, in other words, from every angle, and say, for sure, great king, you should know this. I'm coming from the east, the west, the north, and the south, and there I saw a great mountain, high as the clouds, coming this way, crushing all living beings. Do whatever you think should be done, great king. If, great king, such a great peril should arise, such a terrible destruction of human life, the human state being so difficult to obtain, what should be done? So this sounds like a sort of abstract sort of scenario, a hypothetical situation. But of course, the Buddha's actually using this as a metaphor for life, that death is approaching from every side, like a great unstoppable mountain, and there's actually no place to hide. If it's coming with such force, it's so huge from each side, you can't just get out through the southwest or the northeast. It's going to crush our life, and it's going to create havoc for all living beings. So recognizing that it's so rare to be born into this human state, what should we do? What should be done? And then the king answers, perhaps from his intellect, he knows exactly what he should do. If, Venerable Sir, such a great peril should arise, such a terrible destruction of human life, the human state being so difficult to obtain, what else should be done but to live by the Dhamma, to live righteously, and to do wholesome and meritorious deeds? So here is the simile. I inform you, great king. I announce to you, great king. Aging and death are rolling in on you. When aging and death are rolling in on you, great king, what should be done? As aging and death are rolling in on me, Venerable Sir, what else should be done but to live by the Dhamma, to live righteously, and to do wholesome and meritorious deeds? So I'll pause here and just go into another little point of Dhamma to basically elaborate on what it means to live righteously and to do wholesome and meritorious deeds. We can have a lot of discussion at the end. I'll keep reading through the sutta first, but I wanted to draw your attention to this. I found this little section on 10 courses of wholesome karma, which is apparently included here. And this is on one of Bhikkhu Bodhi's websites. It's called bodhimonastery.org, and it's the 10 courses of wholesome karma. I'm not sure where that is in the suttas. It's probably in the Anguttara 10s, I would imagine. Whenever there's a number, that kind of gives it away sometimes. So what are the 10 courses of wholesome Dhamma? And this refers to living righteously. And in Pali, I think this is called Samacharya. So it's the same thing as Dhammacharya, which means to live by the Dhamma. Samacharya, the word sama, S-A-M-A, is something like even or right or righteous conduct. So the 10 courses of this righteous conduct are 3 of body, 4 of speech, and 3 of mind. So 3 wholesome bodily kammas or conducts are to abstain from killing or taking life, oppression and harassment, and then on the other side, possessing kindness, compassion, and helpfulness. The second one is abstaining from theft, respecting the property rights of others. And the third one, abstaining from misconduct. And Bhikkhu Bodhi says, violation of other loved ones, others loved or cherished ones. In other words, abstaining from adultery, not abusing them, disgracing or dishonoring their families. And then 4 of speech. I don't know if everybody here knows my little, mnemonic. But to remember these 4 modes of false speech, I use this acronym, for my higher good. For my higher good. Okay, so you take the first initial of each one. So F, for, my, M, higher, H, good, G. Okay, so F is for false speech, for, my, M is for malicious speech, higher, H is for harsh speech, good, G, gossip. Good is for gossip. So we abstain from false, harsh, malicious, and gossip. I won't go into that now because I've done that many times. And then 3 courses of wholesome kamma, which are mental. And these 3 are very interesting. 2 of them are right intentions of non-greed and non-hate. Okay, so not only not being greedy, but also thinking of giving, of sacrifice, and making the mind munificent. Not thinking hateful and destructive thoughts, but having good intentions towards others and spreading goodwill. And then the third one is cultivating right view, samaditthi, understanding the law of karma, that good actions bring good results and bad actions bring bad results. Having a thorough grasp of the truth of life and the world, seeing the faring of things according to causes and conditions. Which is a very beautiful, succinct summation of mundane right view. And of course, that can go to noble right view, but at least in the beginning, this preliminary right view, you can see how that could underpin all the good that we do. Understanding the law of karma. Good actions bring good results. That's ethically good actions. And bad actions, ethically unwholesome actions, bring bad results. So if we really understand that, then we take very good care about the actions of our body, speech, and mind. So they are the 10 courses of wholesome karma. So I'll read through the rest of the sutta, because here we have lots of different similes that relate to the king's life. And perhaps we can relate them to our life as well. So there are, Venerable Sir. So this seems like this is still the king speaking. Okay. So the king's already acknowledged that as aging and death are rolling in on me, what else should be done but to live by the Dhamma, to live righteously? In other words, these 10 courses of wholesome karma, and to do wholesome and meritorious deeds. Then he further says to the Buddha, there are, Venerable Sir, elephant battles fought by head-anointed Khattiya kings who are intoxicated with the intoxication of sovereignty, who are obsessed by greed for sensual pleasures, who have attained stable control in their country, and who rule having conquered a great sphere of territory on earth. But there is no place for those elephant battles, no scope for them when aging and death are rolling in. So in other words, even though you have all the elephants in the world, what good is that going to do when aging and death are rolling in? And I think it's in the commentaries that it says, basically, we cannot ward off death through battle or through opportunity or even through capability. In other words, no matter what our privileges, no matter what our skills, there may be differences in how we, are treated, how the kind of healthcare we have access to, etc., based on privilege. perhaps opportunity, maybe even fighting others for that. Hope not. But essentially, everybody's going to die. There are, Venerable Sir, cavalry battles fought by head-anointed kings. There are chariot battles. There are infantry battles. But there's no place for any of those battles, no scope for them when aging and death are rolling in. In this royal court, Venerable Sir, there are counsellors who, when the enemies arrive, are capable of dividing them by subterfuge. But there's no place for those battles of subterfuge, no scope for them when aging and death are rolling in. I checked out the word subterfuge, and it actually means kind of methods of deceit, trickery, deception, sly methods that hide our true intentions to get something that we want. I'm sure you're all familiar with that if you live in the kind of corporate world or the world of having to deal with councils or whatever I'm facing right now. Sometimes, just capitalism really, where people are kind of always trying to exploit other people to get as much as they can to get their wants fulfilled. And of course, there's no way to ever get those wants satiated. And in the meantime, we lack sincerity, we lack that sense of openness and transparency by being sly. But even those sly tricks don't work when aging and death are rolling in. In this royal court, Venerable Sir, there exists abundant bullion and gold. I don't know what bullion is, maybe someone else does. Some kind of currency, something expensive, stored in vaults and depositories, stored away in your safe for a rainy day. And with such wealth, we're capable of mollifying the enemies when they come. But there's no place for those battles of wealth, no scope for them when aging and death are rolling in. As aging and death are rolling in on me, Venerable Sir, what else should be done but to live by the Dhamma, to live righteously, to do wholesome and meritorious deeds? So it is, great King. So it is, great King. As aging and death are rolling in on you, what else should be done but to live by the Dhamma, to live righteously, and to do wholesome and meritorious deeds? This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One, the teacher, further said this. So now there's a little poem. Just as mountains of solid rock, massive, reaching the sky, might draw together from all sides, crushing all in the four quarters, so aging and death come, rolling over living beings. Katyas, Brahmins, Vesas, Suddas, Chandalas and scavengers. That's all the different castes. And also, I don't remember what Chandala is. It's something like some kind of crook. And scavengers, no matter who you are, they spare none along the way, but come crushing everything. There's no ground there for elephant troops, for chariot troops and infantry. One can't defeat them by subterfuge, or buy them off by means of wealth. Therefore, a person of wisdom here, out of regard for one's own good, steadfast, should settle faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. When one conducts oneself by the Dhamma, with body, speech, and mind, they praise one here in the present life, and after death one rejoices in heaven. So there we have the sutta. So the Buddha is trying his very best to help King Pasenadi get a good rebirth. My sense here is probably that this is after the death of his wife, and we're now talking about his own death. He's probably in old age. And so the only thing that becomes important in the context of death is our virtue, the way we've lived our lives. So I would love to open up to some discussion and some themes that I thought might be interesting for us to explore were around how we relate to the fact of our own mortality. If we really understood that our death was coming in on us, closing in on us, like these 4 mountains from each quarter, how would we live our lives? What would we prioritize? What would we spend less energy doing? What would we value if we knew we only had a certain time to live? Who would we want to be around? I was thinking about that. Who would you actually want by your side, at the time of your death? Do you make enough time for them in your life? If it would really sink in that our death was close, it could come at any time, then what would we do differently? What would be our regrets? Would we have regrets? And lastly, I was thinking, about the situation I'm in right now with a few different misfortunes happening all at once, or let's say challenges happening all at once. Difficulty hiring retreat venues, kind of uncertainty around the future of the monastery because of council issues. Also, having one down in the Sangha. We had a beautiful little team of 3. Now we're only 2, but it's wonderful, but it's only 2. So I'm grieving a little bit right now. But I read something really beautiful, something Ajahn Chah said actually in, I think in the biography that I'm reading at the moment. What's it called? Still Water Flowing. He's very monk-oriented, but there are a few little snippets of wisdom in there, which is lovely. I mean, monk-oriented in the sense that it's a lot about their lifestyle and kind of being monks in the forest, which is sometimes a bit, they never mention nuns. But one thing that he said is, if you don't have anything to reproach yourself upon in terms of your virtue, in terms of your vinaya as a monastic, then don't obsess, don't worry too much about the ups and downs. Misfortune comes, pleasure, pain comes and goes, blame and praise comes and goes. But if you don't have anything to really reproach yourself about in terms of your conduct, then it doesn't really matter. These are just the worldly winds. I thought that was very beautiful. So maybe we can speak to some of these themes, and I'm going to come to Minori, who has her hand raised. And please also ask questions or, use the space to talk about anything that's pertinent to you, related to the sutta, please, related to this theme, and or related to your practice, however it is. Okay, Minori. Whoops, I think I unmuted you and then muted you again. Yes.
Yeah, so related to the death, it is something that I kind of practiced a little bit with the Marananusati from different monks. There is Bhikkhu Anālyo, and one really good thing that I liked was Ajahn Brahmali's one was totally different, and it was like very practical. And I kind of always think like, there may be some kind of a sickness coming up. I don't know what is inside my body, and I've been kind of almost touched the death like about 3 times, but
Okay.
all those 3 times it has been a really calm mind. But I mean, I don't know, like, but I've kind of, rerun things in my mind. What if, what, and it's I've gone to the lens, like written my wills and told my children hundreds of times, and then my daughter asked, are you okay? Is there something that you need to tell me? I said, no, I'm just preparing you.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So I mean, that is my kind of thinking of
Yeah.
as a natural normal thing, like I'm just a part of nature.
Yeah.
When I've tried to talk to my non-Dhamma friends, like they don't want to talk about death. So that is another thing that I kind of experienced as well. I don't know, it's a cultural thing, because when I was a child, my grandmother used to take me to all the whenever I'm in her village, she used to take me to all the funerals, and I used to see,
Great.
you know, the funerals were at home. So you
Yeah.
see the dead person, you see the crying people,
Mhm.
and you see the funeral pyres, and then she'll bring me back. And it was kind of a practical teaching, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I think it would have normalized death as
Yeah.
part of life, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I see too in India and other Asian cultures, but especially in India, and maybe it's similar in Sri Lanka, that death is very much in the open. I mean, literally can be in the open because there's such a seething mass of humanity living, dying, washing, sleeping on the streets, playing. It's in the open, you know. I mean, it's famous to go to Varanasi into the burning ghats, you know, where just bodies are being burned 24 hours of the day around the clock. And I think in those cultures that it does kind of lead to a sense of spiritual inquiry because people don't take their lives so much for granted. It could happen at any time. And in the suttas too, there were stories of, you know, like monks coming to the Buddha, getting a small teaching, leaving, and then getting killed by a cow in the streets. Just like that. And yeah, I think what you're saying is very wise, you know, to really make that preparation and to check your relationship with death from time to time and put plans in place. That's wonderful. Yeah, really good. And you know, I mean, it's great if you can see that in the times you've come close, your mind remained calm. But even if it doesn't, that doesn't mean all the wholesome things you've done are eradicated. You know, there's this idea which comes from the Abhidhamma that it's all about the last mind moment. But that's actually not the case in the suttas. It's more about the general direction of your life. So keep the mind as clean and pure and wholesome as you can, and you'll be fine. There's nothing to fear. So wonderful. I rejoice for you. Thank you for sharing. Joseph.
Thank you, Venerable. With gratitude and thankfulness, supreme reverence, loving kindness, to ornament and support hearts, I offer the Sangha this gift, healing balm of loving kindness, fragrant with the scent of virtue, soothing care, warm-hearted and bright, benefits measureless beings.
Sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for encouraging making merit while we can. Thank you. Be well.
That's you're demonstrating one of the wholesome attitudes we can have. So you're making kusala karma of the mind. Very nice. I'm just going to come to a question in the chat before I come to Diana. Trying to go somewhat in order, but I'll make sure I get to everybody. How can we focus on doing good and accumulating virtue when our physical ability to be out in the world can be limited by illness? Physical ability, yeah, can be limited by illness, disability, etc. So I think it comes back to what we spoke about, the 10 courses for wholesome karma. Only some of those are bodily actions. And many of the times, those bodily actions are abstinences. So even though you're maybe not able to be physically active in terms of what you offer as much as you may wish, still you can observe your precepts. You're not killing, hopefully, and that can mean you protect the little beings that live around you. There'll certainly be many little beings sharing your space, and you know, invisible beings as well. You can protect them, share your merits with them. You can commit to a life of either celibacy or loyalty in relationships, so you're not breaking that particular precept. You're a person others can trust. And what was the other one? Not to steal. So you live within your means. You live a life of simplicity. You don't exploit or take from others. And you try to practice generosity, which doesn't have to be in person. You can do that online. You can make donations. You can be kind to others. You can be generous with your time. And then, of course, your virtue by verbal action can be there. I mean, right now you're here and you're asking Dhamma questions. That is good karma. The Buddha said that when you ask questions, you're intelligent in your next life. And I'm quite sure that by the virtue of this question, you're already intelligent. So now you're going to be even more intelligent next time. And also, of course, one of the most powerful good karmas we can do is to purify our mind. You know, our verbal and physical action comes from the mind. So if we dwell at home with thoughts of loving kindness, thoughts of compassion, thoughts of non-harming, non-cruelty, thoughts of rejoicing joy, rejoicing in the success of others. I was reflecting on this today. Jealousy is one of the most destructive attitudes we can have, because it's a kind of ill will, but it's not ill will because someone's done anything wrong even, right? We can understand that it might be difficult not to have ill will towards people who murder or people who exploit, but to have ill will because someone else is happy is really quite mean-spirited and even cruel, I would say. And so to dwell rejoicing in others' good karma when you can't do things yourself is also an incredibly good and powerful practice. And so by this, you are purifying your mind. You can actually get liberated that way. You're observing your virtue, you're, dwelling with a pure mind as much as you can. You're sincerely practicing the Dhamma. Don't worry about anything else. It doesn't only have to manifest in particular types of physical action. So just be around the Dhamma, hear the Dhamma, purify your view. That's the other wholesome mental action, developing right view. I'm going to come to Diana, who has her hand up. Hi. Hello.
Hi. Two hands.
Two hands.
Thank you for the Dhamma and sharing that phrase that I just want to get it right. Aging and death are rolling in on me. That is a powerful image.
Yeah.
Today I was walking my dog and I saw a cat lying in the street next to the curb. And it was alive, but it had been hit by a car.
Oh.
And it was a good-sized black cat. It looked well-fed. He looked like a nice boy. And
Oh.
he was just, trembling. So I sat with him and I called animal control. And when I felt like it was safe, I put my hand very close to him and he was cold. And I touched him and I just sent him love and waited for the guy to come, and they took him to a place and he called me and said they euthanized him because his back was broken.
Oh, poor thing.
So death was rolling in on him.
Yeah. And he didn't know it, huh?
He was just walking across the street.
Yeah.
And a week ago, a friend of mine from high school, my best friend in high school, her husband was riding his bicycle and he was hit head on by an SUV and died.
Oh, gosh.
And his funeral was on Wednesday, and there's been a lot of death this week
Yeah.
in my world, and the people I know. Every time I tell someone, they're like, "Oh, I know someone who just, I know someone."
Yeah.
And of course, it's coming for us too.
Right. Yes.
So I don't know. Right now, I think who I'd want with me if I was dying, I just want my cat.
Oh.
It's a big test of life to be able to face death. And it's very good news that maybe the Abhidhamma is wrong.
Yes.
Because I always felt like that is putting a lot of pressure.
It's like having to get, all your life's work, you've done all your work for university exams, and then it's just one question at the end. I mean,
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense, right? Doesn't make
That's not
sense.
fair.
No, it doesn't make sense. I mean, the last moment can't have more weight than every other moment that's gone. That wouldn't make any sense in terms of karma. You know,
No.
everything we do has a consequence. So that means all the good karma we perform throughout our lives, all the kindness, all the times we sacrifice, even the times, you know, we struggle, we make mistakes, but then we try to improve. All of this is going to our benefit. None of it goes waste. It's the qualities we develop in our life that determine the course of our next life. It's just a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what if, like, you die in a shocking, sudden moment and you're
Sure.
afraid?
Sure. Well, the interesting thing that Ajahn Brahm always says too is that there's no moment of death, it's a process. So fear may come up, but then in so many anecdotes and experiences, especially have a look at this book called After. I find this a really wonderful book. It's kind of an American doctor writing it, so it's sort of light, but it's also based on science and his whole life studying near-death experiences. And it's just remarkable that the time, no matter how a person feels towards the moment of death, when their body actually kind of separates from the mind leaves the body, there's this tremendous sense of peace. Even in people who, very, very rare cases when they don't feel that, but even in people who haven't lived particularly virtuous lives, there's an incredible sense of peace when the mind leaves, and they don't feel pain. They don't feel pain. They actually feel quite resentful when they come back again. So I find it really wonderful to read, and it actually can make you look forward to death perhaps being a really beautiful experience, perhaps being something really peaceful and almost like a celebration of your life. You know, you're carrying all that goodness with you. So I think it's really important that the death contemplation that Minori was mentioning by Ajahn Brahmali, he does some guided death meditations. It's very much based on that, sort of imagining that you're dying and that you're very relaxed. And then this feeling of gratitude just comes over you for all the incredible people in your life, all the opportunities you had to love others and to help others. And it just becomes more and more joyful as you reach that point. So I think it's really good to practice this, actually, to kind of rehearse, if you like, and to start to lessen that fear. But yeah, I think it's difficult when it's sudden, especially if we haven't reflected. It's difficult, and that's part of life as well, the grief, right? But perhaps using it as a reminder to really prioritize the things that are important to us, the things that really help ourselves and others, really benefit ourselves and others, and waste less time. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. I'm coming to a question in the chat, or maybe a comment. Comments are great too. They're even better because I don't have to think. If death was close, I would prioritize myself. Say no more. Praise myself, say no more. I would do things that give me joy. Say no more. Okay, say no more. I would prioritize myself, in other words, my well-being, and say no more. Yes. I would do more things that give me joy. Act more like myself and less like others. That's interesting. So find more authenticity. I would surround myself with people who value the same things as myself, i.e., are closer to asceticism. Okay, so I guess the next question is, can you start to do that now? What does close mean? How close does death have to be? Someone else, I'm coming to rhythmic freedom very soon. Making some inquiries on the topic just now, I'm surprised to find that I don't think I'd do anything differently if I knew death were imminent. Yay! Perhaps this is an indication that I'm on the right track, that I'm already living in line with my values. Absolutely, I would agree. Yeah, brilliant. I also had that reflection a few years ago when I had a melanoma, and I realized, you know what? I actually wouldn't change anything. I thought I'd be like, okay, forget the project, go on retreat. But I was like, no, actually, I really believe in what I'm doing. Now I think I'd probably take a bit more retreat time right now. Anyway, okay, I'm coming to you. I'm going to ask you your name because I don't know. Hi. Oops, I can't actually hear you. So there is some sound, but it's very faint. Oh, no, it's gone again. Very faintly. I don't know if you can come much closer to your computer. Unfortunately, I can't hear you. Oh.
Oh, about oh,
Could you come really close to the screen and see if that helps?
is this better?
Yeah, a little bit.
I think I turned myself up a little bit.
That is better.
Thanks. Sorry. I only wanted to comment about an anecdote from a long time ago in my life that wraps together so many of these issues, and it always is. You brought it to the forefront of my mind in the discussion about jealousy and death and unskillful decisions and whether we know we're making them or not. All wrapped up in. I was living with a group of friends in a beautiful place in a little cottage in a heavenly setting, and we had another friend who was living apart with a girlfriend. Anyway, he and the girlfriend split up. That friend wanted to move in with us, but we didn't have enough room, and we wrestled with this. We didn't want to move out just because of him, but he was our friend. We didn't think it was right of him to put us in this position, but things happen. Anyway, we moved out to less comfortable living situation, so to include him. And the people that moved into the house we had been in, who were very excited because it was a haven in the woods, little cottage, pond, down dirt road, the whole thing. And we were, those of us who weren't the one who moved in, were very jealous. Like, we had resentment, and we were kind of pissed at our friend for forcing us to do that, and we were jealous of the people who moved in and envious of, like, oh, if we still move there, they're so lucky. Anyway, a couple weeks after moving in, the gentleman was pulling out of the driveway on his motorcycle and was hit by a car and killed. That house. And the whirlwind of turning all of our thoughts and emotions on our heads, of here we were jealous of someone who's in a situation that was really going to kill him in the end, and us having such a part in the thing. If we hadn't moved out, he wouldn't have moved in.
Wow.
And just, there's no real answer to these. I'm not saying this because there's an ending like, and so I realized, but
Right.
it just, all of those emotions and things that we do that set other things in motions and in motion, and the way we feel about our situation and other people's is so skewed as to how the universe is really spinning it all, that it's, these things are often, it's so interrelated, the emotions and the actions and what happens to other people based on what we do and feel and what happens to us. It's very difficult.
Wow.
So, no answers here, but just
Yeah.
what that stirred in me, that kind of connection of all of these concepts.
Yeah. Thank
You
you.
usually see that butterfly effect right in front of your eyes, but sometimes you do. Thank you.
Yeah. Could I, sorry, it's very beautiful, touching sharing. I still didn't get your name, just so
Eric. Eric.
Sorry, Eric. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Wow.
Thank you.
That's powerful. I guess that's something that can stay with you for the rest of your life, to see, yeah, that sometimes maybe what we're envious of is actually not something to be so envious of. I mean, that's one of the things that comes to my mind. How can we really know what's for our good and what isn't? And even if death is such a terrible thing, we just don't know. But we waste so much energy, I guess, thinking about it could be different, it could be better, maybe I made a mistake. And I guess,
Got what they wanted. Those folks got what they wanted. They wanted to live there, and
Right.
tragedy.
Well, or we could think of it as though he had 2 weeks left of his life and he was living in a beautiful place for the last 2 weeks. He might have been really happy at that time. And that was the best thing that could have happened to him in those last 2 weeks, perhaps. It's different perspectives, isn't it? But I really like this sort of perspective that the Sutta's offering about our virtue being the most important thing, and kind of not measuring the success or otherwise of our life based on whether we get the beautiful place to live or whether, you know, things go the way we expect, and yeah, or even how long we live for, right? But did we practice well? Did we live with integrity? You know, did we have our values in the right place? And I think that's really what matters in the end. It's not so much how long we live or even maybe the circumstances of our death. Obviously, we might have our own ideas about how we'd like to die, but we don't have much choice of that. But we do have some kind of influence over the way we behave in our lives. That's the only thing we can really know, isn't it? Yeah, thank you. Gosh, that's a powerful story and obviously a transformative one in your life. So appreciate the sharing. I'm just going to come to a couple of comments in the chat, which have been there a while. Can you elaborate on the connection between the reduction of fear of death with a deeper understanding of anatta? Yeah. Well, I guess the obvious thing is that if we understand that this thing we we identify with as a self is actually a process, this actually causes arising and passing away. Not that there's nothing there, but this whole body and mind is conditioned and it is impermanent and subject to change. If we really understand that, then there's no more need to grieve over our own death than there is over any other being's death, even someone we don't know, or the death of an animal, the death of a plant. If we just see ourselves as part of nature, you know, nothing unique, and, you know, going according to the causes of nature, then in a sense, what is there to fear? I think, you know, there is a gradual reduction of the fear of death due to the lack of clinging that comes about as our understanding of non-self deepens. What is there to cling to if we know that everything is, you know, out of control? Everything is arising and passing. There's not me, not mine, not a self. There's nothing permanent there in the first place. So how can we expect it to stay the same? Yeah. But it comes through practice, you know. It doesn't really come through contemplation alone. I think it comes through the practice of learning not to cling. You know, you can experience it yourself in meditation if you're working, say, with difficult or unpleasant feelings in the body. Sometimes there might be a fear like, oh dear, does this mean that I'm sick? Could this be a cancer? But then when we can actually just observe unpleasant sensation as unpleasant sensation and get some equanimity to that, we start to see that, well, anyway, it's arising and passing and it's not under my control. It is non-self. So the fear just naturally decreases through the way of seeing. It's not something we have to rationalize. So I think it's really the process of meditation that helps overcome the fear of death. And of course, sometimes being with that fear itself and noticing that fear too is impermanent. Fear too is non-self. It's a feeling, it's an emotion. It doesn't mean that anything's wrong. So I think actually embracing and understanding, even investigating fear is part of it. Because if we try too quickly to kind of rationalize it away, that doesn't really work. So I don't know if that really speaks to what you are asking, but please ask it again in another way if not. I'm coming to Kathleen. Hi.
Hi. I'm interested in the issue of righteous living or virtue and this kind of thing. Growing up in a Christian context where there were a lot of shoulds and oughts around the idea of doing good in one's life.
Yeah.
I've had to shuffle a fair amount of shit around all of that issue. And read or getting to know Buddhist teachings, I found it immensely helpful to find some relaxation around that whole issue.
Yeah.
And ironically, also prior to even getting really into the Buddhist teachings, just engaging with nonviolent communication, which is a which involves one thinking about one's own feelings, one's own needs. This was a foreign concept to me originally.
Nice.
So the burden of doing good was even heavier, kind of, you know. And what I've kind of come to understand, and I want to sort of check out whether this sort of get a reality check on this idea, is that my sense at this point in my learning is that that virtue and living a righteous life kind of is not the stuff that you put out before you've done your what am I trying to say? That it kind of is a result, particularly after the retreat. I found that the more I meditate, the more kind of peace I find in myself, the more these other things kind of flow almost naturally.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't feel difficult. It doesn't feel like a should or an ought anymore.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like, does that register with
Totally.
other folk or with you as well?
Well, with me, I don't know about others. Anyone want to nod or shake their head? Yeah. Thumbs up. Yeah, for me, I mean, hearing shoulds was always a turn off. Because not just because it sounds preachy, but because I know what I should or shouldn't, but how? And so for me, the Buddha was actually pointing out a path, a way to change, a way to understand the mind. My first kind of interest in the Dhamma was to try and understand what on earth was going on in my mind. And when I heard that you could do these retreats and just sit with yourself and watch your mind for 10 days, I just thought, yes, that's what I've always wanted to do. Because I studied psychology, but it was like no answers, just all these studies. You had to quote all these different theories. And it was so intellectual and kind of, you know, biomedicinal, you know, kind of model. It didn't really do it for me because it didn't help me understand my mind and what was happening. But when I did my first retreat, I never went in thinking, right, I shouldn't go to a rave anymore, or I shouldn't, I don't know, whatever I was doing, not very much of these things. But afterwards, listening to music, that was my big thing. Like I was very, you know, you're a musician, aren't you? So music was my thing. And yeah, it was the most important thing in my life, probably. And then after my first retreat, I just didn't really have the need, and it wasn't a should at all. I just didn't feel particularly interested in listening to music very much. I was in India and I was traveling and everything was very different. There were people that I wanted to talk to. There were goats on the top of the bus, and it was fascinating. The last thing I wanted to do was put some plugs in my ears. And then I found that I just wasn't interested in kind of going to these raves. I think maybe I shouldn't say this because in case my mum watches, but I mean, I never took money drugs, okay, but I might take half a pill of acid or something once in a blue moon. And I did that one more time. And then I'm like, what's the point of that, you know? And from then on, my sila was pretty much packed. Like in terms of the 5 precepts, it was just natural. So I totally resonate with that. Yeah, because I mean, the Buddha said everything starts in the mind. So once your mind kind of knows where real happiness lies, or even just gets a little sense of the kind of peaceful contentment that can come in meditation, you don't want to spoil that with these agitating kind of things that people do. Yeah. So yeah, that I think is a really beautiful way to develop the virtue, and it's a more solid one as well. Yeah.
But you have to kind of be open to go down that route. I mean, I spoke to a neighbor today who just said, "Oh, the idea of sitting with myself for half an hour,
right?
Couldn't do it.
Yeah, well,
you know, which I can understand.
5 minutes. 5 minutes is good enough. You know, take small steps. It's not that you have to sit on retreats in order to develop virtue. I think the amazing thing about being a human being is that we have the capacity to observe cause and effect, you know, just as part of the right view. Certain actions lead to positive results, wholesome results, happiness, long-term happiness. Other actions lead to other results. It might not be instant suffering, but it might be happiness that doesn't last. It might be happiness that is somehow tainted. It might be happiness that gets us into a lot of trouble later on down the line. So I think we have that capacity as human beings to learn from our minds, even without meditation. It's just whether or not we're really looking in that direction. And even hearing these teachings, sometimes it just takes hearing the teachings to give you a pointer. Like that's why the Buddha said it's so important to be around wise people, to be around for the purpose of hearing the Dhamma. Yeah. So I do believe everyone has that capacity. Thank you very much for sharing your experience.
Thank you.
So a couple more questions or comments. The real problem is that we really cannot die, isn't it? With the death comes birth. The continuation of samsara. If there's no birth, there's no death. Only through understanding can we put an end to this cycle. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not just the dukkha of dying, but that is considered one of the big dukkhas by the Buddha. He didn't sort of have it, he didn't kind of beat around the bush. He said suffering, death is suffering, birth is suffering. But yeah, birth and death and birth and death and birth and death 1,000 million times is 1,000 million times more suffering. So we don't want to keep doing it again and again. Yeah. So in a sense, delusion is the ultimate cause. It's the deepest cause of suffering. And we can only put an end to the cycle by uprooting delusion. How do we uproot delusion? Through developing wisdom. How do we develop wisdom? Through developing virtue and the samadhi that grows on the foundation of virtue. So this is where we begin. We can't look to, trying to end suffering right away, but we can put the causes in place and see that even by living virtuous lives, it's not a small thing, especially if it comes from wisdom, or it comes as a natural outcome of practice. Living a virtuous life is taking you on the right path, and it's only a matter of time. You keep exposing yourself to these teachings, you keep practicing, and over time, suffering will end. Ajahn Brahm's teaching, we can't always cure, but we can always care. Feels even more kindful in relation to old age and dying. Absolutely. The word care seems to encompass one word, sila, samadhi, and panya. Yeah. I mean, if we really know what kindness is, we practice the Eightfold Path. In the light that all conditions are unsatisfactory, karuna, anudaya, and anukampa seem especially wholesome, blameless, and bright qualities to be cultivated and fit for the noble ones. Karuna is compassion, anudaya is like empathy, and anukampa is kind of both together. And all of them have an active sense. Yeah, beautiful. Yes, everything's out of control. That can be frightening at times, or rather, I have just as little control over frightening things. Down there is the ground, and I'm already falling, and I'm so glad that as I fall, I have wonderful people like you who I can sometimes laugh with about it. Beautiful, yeah. The ground is falling, but we're all on that ground and falling together in that sense, yeah. So, yeah, and, again, we're not really falling if we maintain our precepts, our sila, and practice living virtuous lives. It's only the physical, material things that crumble, but our virtue accompanies us into the next life too. Okay, last comment, I hope, a little long. I find myself contemplating the death of myself and loved ones fairly often. When I meditate on death, it's often very liberating and helps me take life less seriously, gain perspective, and feel more joyful and present. Yay! That's very good death contemplation. But I also often find myself worrying about the death of loved ones, particularly those back home in Sri Lanka, as I've lived away in the UK away for nearly 12 years. I care deeply for them and want them to be happy, fulfilled, and find the Dhamma. They should find the Dhamma in Sri Lanka, hopefully. Otherwise, bring them to these sessions. I resonated with the king only being consoled in knowing his wife was in heaven realm. I think I worry about loved ones in a similar sense, wanting them to be okay, wanting their lives to be okay, and feeling really responsible for making sure they'll be okay, so that at the time of their deaths they'll be at peace. That's it, isn't it? We can't make sure, but the thing is, they can make sure, and if they're pretty decent people don't worry about them. They're going to be fine. But yeah, it's a lot of suffering when we want, a lot of these words here are worry, want. Worry comes from wanting, doesn't it? Making sure, wanting to control things we cannot control. But I honestly do believe that most people, unless they're committing really, really unskillful acts, are going to be okay. That they'll be at peace. And they might come to you for advice later on in their lives. Sometimes that's more powerful when they approach you. Part of the grief feels like it comes from not knowing if they're okay after death. Yeah. I mean, I think this is a big fear that can arise, especially in people that are kind of exposed to the Buddhist teachings in a sort of Buddhist culture. There's a lot of fear in the way the Dhamma can be taught, do good or you'll go to hell. I mean, if you do bad, you'll go to hell, blah, blah. I don't know. To me, that's a very kind of Christian approach and not a very helpful approach. It's not, if you've got a human life now, you've done a lot of good karma. As long as you're not really messing up in this human life, you're going to get a human life again. You're going to have more and more opportunities to develop the Dhamma, and they have you in their family. So you can become an example of the benefits of practicing, and that'll be the best way you can serve. Send them your loving kindness, share your merits, and trust that they will be okay. We can never know. But I think, again, sometimes we want to intellectualize these things. It's about working with your own worry, embracing that, looking at the beauty beneath it, which is that you really care, and try to develop the caring part of it, the compassion, the wishing for their freedom from suffering, and share those thoughts and intentions with them. That will help you come out of the worry, and it will also help them as well. So, yeah, don't worry about the worry. And don't fear the fear, but just try to slowly embrace all of those feelings, because yeah, it's part of being a human being. We care for others, and that's important. I mean, I also not so much worry about what's going to happen to people later, but I certainly worry about what's going to happen to me. It's selfish, isn't it, when my teacher dies? And I'm going to have to embrace a lot of grief. There's no doubt about it, unless I'm an arahat before it happens, or an anagami, which, I don't know, let's hope. Then it's going to be the hardest thing I have to face. And my intention is to face it with a lot of compassion. So please face your own emotions with that compassion too. Okay, I'm going to have to stop there. I'm sorry I can't come to you again, Joseph. But we are out of time, and I'd like to just invite Manoj to say a few words to end, and then let you know what's coming next.
Yeah, thank you very much, Venerable, again, for the lovely, wonderful teaching on a very, very deep subject. And for all of us, thank you very much as well to be this community. And I'll take this opportunity to tell these few words about the dana or generosity as usual. But it is nice to remember these things on and off, because the giving develops wholesome qualities that form the foundation of our Dhamma practice. And here at Anukampa, we offer several ways that you can cultivate this beautiful quality of giving. The most common thing is a financial donation through our website. And you can do it through a bank transfer, PayPal, or SumUp. If you are financially capable, you can do standing orders, regular donations. And any amount is very gratefully accepted by Anukampa Bhikkhuni Project. And you can offer your time as a drop-in or an online volunteer. If you have any administrative or any other skills, you can contact team@anukampaproject.org. You can provide meals to the monastics, either in person or via cooked meal delivery. You can do remote deliveries as well, remote dana as well, that is a food dana, food donations. And you can do things like Deliveroo or things like that. You can discuss with team at anukampaproject.org as well on this. And you can send groceries and other household items that the monastery may need, time, on and off. There is a list of these items you can find in the website as well. And thank you very much for being this community.
Thank you so much, Manoi, and for being a big part of this community too. Yeah, next weekend. So what day is it now? Friday. Okay, tomorrow we have a metta meditation, and then next weekend we still have a Sutta class on Friday, and then on Saturday, 21st. So is that Sunday? Yeah, next Sunday. So what's happening on Saturday? Nothing. Maybe nothing. Yeah, on Sunday next week, we have a day retreat called Empathy and Resilience. And I hope some of you can come because I need help on the theme. It'll be really interesting because it's one of those themes where it's like, does empathy really make you resilient or does it actually drag you down? And how do we transform empathy into something really beautiful? Because compassion without empathy is also no good. It's not real. It's intellectual. Doesn't really feel what another person feels. So how can it be informed? So anyway, that will be the theme of the day retreat, and I'm sure it will involve a lot of compassion meditation as well. So yes, you can join the online retreat. It's registering with Gaia House. I think it's on our events page, so I'm sure one of the co-hosts could put it there. Yeah, Mattis already did it so fast. So just look down for that and you can register with them. So I hope to see you somewhere soon, either at Wednesday or tomorrow for the metta, or on Wednesday or Friday or next Sunday. So take care, everybody, and look after yourselves and everyone around you as best you can.